Alright, shalom, shalom to the nation of Israel, shalom, alright? This is your brother Kazaki out of Great Millstone, New Orleans, coming at you with another lesson through the spirit and power, Yahweh Shema Shai, right? We're probably getting started. We want to give all infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, our Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who really teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, alright? And the title of today's lesson is going to be Esau is a vile man. Okay, that's the title of today's lesson. This Esau is a vile man, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I had to talk to a guy who was an Edomite, a so-called white man, at the job about some union related issues. Okay, going into the contract, and he'd been there for a while, so I was just trying to get his expertise on union agreements, or whatnot. But that day in particular, he just so happened to be, he normally doesn't work my shift, so that he ended up staying over and working an additional 8 hours. So he's working at 16, but he goes out, he buys food, sits down in the lunchroom. They have a TV, they got chairs and all the rest of that kind of good stuff. All right, just giving a little background, context or whatever. And as he was sitting down eating, and before I could talk to him, I kind of walked up on him, and I noticed that his hands, specifically, his fingers was just completely black, just jet black. Now, it's noticeable because, it'd be noticeable on anybody, but definitely noticeable on Esau, the Edomite, so-called white man. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, and I want to say this: he's eating his food, right? He's eating his food, and he's doing the whole, the little things that Jake do, like he's hitting the fingertips, all that good stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, that's freaking disgusting, man. Like it's just nasty. There's nothing else to say about it. That's you know. Because here it is, there's a sink where you can wash your arms off, get a lot of, like a lot of dirt, debris, all kinds of stuff all over your arms, and definitely on your hands if you're touching anything with your bare hands, which you shouldn't, at least in my line of work. I don't, or, I definitely try not to, I don't even touch, I got work with a lot of Edomites, so I don't even touch the damn the steering wheel of the golf carts, because I know they don't wash their fucking hands, man. They just use the bathroom and just walk straight out. Then here you are, you driving a buggy, and now I'm driving a buggy, and now I'm touching shit you touched. It's nasty. But this guy was eating with just tar for fucking hands, just built up tar. And licking the fingertips and all. I'm like, you, dude, and it really prompted me to do this lesson, and as brothers know, Esau is just a vile friggin' individual, man. He's just nasty, man, disgusting. Okay, and I'm gonna kick the lesson off with this here. This is Daniel 4 and verse 17. It says, "This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and a demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and set up over it the basest of men." So this man, Esau, right, because the scriptures tell you, Job 9 and 24, it says that the earth was given into the hand of the wicked, right, given into these Edomites, okay, Esau, Edom, these so-called white people, all right, and the Lord has set up a base man to rule the earth, man, okay. That's why the scriptures say, let's get this real quick. We'll get this real quick. To the, wait a minute. This is Proverbs 29 and verse 2. It says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. So when the kingdom of heaven come, the elect of the nation of Israel, get their, their new bodies, okay, and the Lord comes and rules the earth, in righteousness. Everybody, they're gonna rejoice, man. Okay, because the earth, again, will be a paradise, man, a beautiful place, right? Okay, we got Esau. He's killing up the plants, the food. He's basically, poisoning the food. Okay, he's poisoning the water. He's poisoning the air. He's cutting down all the trees, creating concrete jungles. Okay, that's called cities. And sticking the people in there. You don't have no fruits, no vegetables, no nothing at your disposal in the city, man. Nothing. You gotta pay for the water. You gotta pay for electricity and the fruits from out of the supermarkets. They teach you how to be completely dependent on him. And it says, but when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn, man. And the people are mourning that this vile, disgusting person is ruling the planet, man. People are pissed off, okay, and not happy with this BS. Every time you look around, it's a problem. There's an issue. There's war going on. There's this going on. It's like living in a friggin' nightmare. Okay, let me go here. Go to Job 30, and I'll read a little bit out of this here. Might catch a little bit of it in a GNT as well. This is Job 30 and verse 1. It says, but now they that are younger than but now they that are younger than I have me in derision, right? And it says, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. Right, I'm going to read the same verse real quick in the GNT. We probably catch a few of them in the GNT. It says, but men younger than I am make fun of me now, okay? And that's what Esau has, man. Really, to be honest with you, he really does have the nation of Israel as a laughing stock around the planet, okay? All the people are laughing, pointing their fingers, clapping their hands, like we finally got you, you Israelites, man. Okay, you so-called Black, Hispanic, Native American, Seminole, Indian, man, woman, and child. We finally got y'all. Took y'all down. Y'all out of power. Okay, but it all started with this, vile, person. Okay, all right, and it says, I would have disdained. I was reading the GNT, and it says their fathers have always been so worthless that I wouldn't let them help my dogs guard sheep, right? Because what Esau does when he's around animals, man. Okay, he get the land, he get the land and with the animals, and having the animals do some profane ass things, abominable ass acts, man. But that's him though. That's who he is. His women do the same shit too. But that's their nature. Just vile and disgusting beings, man. Alright. Go to verse 2. It says, yeah, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished. And it says, for want and famine they were solitarily fleeing into the wilderness, in former time desolate and waste. Okay, so well, it's gonna say, I'm gonna keep going. And it says, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. Read the same verse in the GNT. And it says they pulled up the plants of the desert and ate them. Look at this man, man. Pull up the plants of the desert and ate them. It says even the tasteless roots of the broom tree, man. So this man, had no sense of cleanliness. He has no sense of, you know, um, agriculture. The things I'm saying the things you should eat and the things you shouldn't eat. Like, this dude to eat it. I've seen Esau eat, basically raw meat, man, uncooked, just straight up, just raw, and be proud to eat it too. But this here says they had juniper roots for their meat, man. All right. This is verse. We go to verse 5, and it says they were driven forth from among men. Yeah, there was, the nations. Okay. Slakia, what I wanted to say. Basically, man, they were driven away into the caves. Okay. All right. Where that was their dwelling place. For a certain period of time. Nobody wanted to deal with this damn devil. That's what he was. The scriptures say there's the old serpent, the devil, okay, basically meaning the deceiver of the earth, Satan, okay, all at, which means adversary, all group into one person, man. Just a vile, nasty, disgusting person, man. Okay, and it says they cried after them as after a thief. It says to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in the caves of the earth, right? A cave dweller, right? That's what we dealing with. That's who we have in position of power right now, a damn cave dweller. Okay? And it says, and in the rocks, right? So that's what he was in these different mountainous regions, okay? And it says, among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. Okay? Read it in the same one in the GNT. It says, out in the wilds they howl like animals, and huddled together under the bushes. So these people they were like beasts, man. Literal beasts. Okay? Literal freaking howling, man, just grunting, okay, doing all kinds of things that basically the average person wouldn't do, man. That's why I read earlier the Lord set up what basically the basis of men, man, the scumbag of the earth, the lowest of the low, because Esau flipped the narrative. He basically he have us doing hip hop, rap, trap music, and create a so-called black culture, a nigger culture, okay, and that's what he calls us. Oh, look at this! Look at these niggas, okay. But truth be told, Esau's the real nigga of the earth, man. He's actually the real thug of the earth, and we're seeing that now, okay, with Israel, okay, and the U.S. Going up against Iran and all these other places. All right, they just going into the lands and just taking it over, right? The scriptures say that his soul being lifted up is not upright in him, man. He don't have basically. There's nothing just about this guy. He doesn't, there's no righteousness in this man. He just pure wicked, prideful too. That's a whole nother thing. Okay, let's get this here. It says they were children of fools. children of just stupid people, man. Okay, we go into that word fools right here, right? Well, it tells you, it says, Strong's H5036. It says Nabal. It says stupid, man. It just says impious, foolish, right? And it says vile person, man. It's just disgusting, dude. Ain't nothing else to say about that, you know. Let me see. I'll get this because I had the word vile right here. Actually, let me finish the verse and then I'll get the word vile, right? And it says, um, they were children of base men. Yeah, true. Slakia. It says they were children of fools. Yeah, children of base men. Okay. I'm gonna read the GNT too, and it says they were viler than the earth, man. All right. It says this same verse in the GNT. It says a worthless bunch of nameless nobodies. I'm like, you know, just but because the scriptures tell you that Esau, basically always had the reputation of being nothing, man. You know, I mean the nations. It says the nations, but definitely Esau. He's 110%. Um, he's over the cap for being a reprobate, a profane fornicator, right? He's the definition of the definition. You know, it says they were driven out of the land, man. Right, man. So these people, like I said, they're just a vile, nasty, disgusting, you know, race that's ruling the earth, man. And we can't wait for Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, to basically, take over, man. And do his thing and rule the earth in righteousness, right? We've been, longer waiting for these days, and we're close, man. That's all I got to say, man. We real close to the return of Yahweh Ba'ashim Shai, man. You know. Let's get this vowel real quick. This is a vowel from out of the online etymology dictionary. It says late 13th century, morally repugnant. You know, oh man, it says morally flawed, corrupted. Right? The scripture says, his soul lifted up is not upright in him, man. He's not, like I said, he don't have a righteous ounce in his spirit, man. He's the definition of wickedness, of being wicked. Okay. And it says, wicked, of no value, right? We talked about that, not having any value to Yahweh Shema Shah, the Lord, of inferior quality, right? We're not equal, okay? Now it's not even close by a long shot. The Israelites are you so-called black, Hispanic, Native American, Seminole Indian man, woman, and child, and the Gentiles, the Israelite foreigners, that look like the other nations, okay, but are actually Israelites, are superior to Esau in every way, and we know that we talk about that, Yasha Allah, Yah, He, Shar, Prince, Allah, power, the Prince of the powers with Yahweh Shimon Shai. You don't even stand a chance, Esau. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Lord's giving him, great technology, witchcraft, sorcery, enchantments. He's giving him great power on the left side to do things basically a God would be able to do. That's why he's so prideful, okay? But there's levels to this. It's ultimately what I'm saying. Okay, it says foul, ugly, degrading, humility of low estate, without worldly honor. Yes, all of this describes Esau. He has no honor. He has no integrity at all, man. Yeah, yeah, damn, this word. Look at this. Let's keep going. Honor or esteem. It says from Anglo-French, vile, okay? It says old, you know, okay? And it says shameful, dishonorable, lowborn, worthless, base. It says common, okay? You know, and the list goes on and on. Cheap, worthless. Yeah, it says cheap, worthless, bait. Or so yeah, man. Like I said, all of this is basically just to describe Esau, man. And it describes him what? It describes him perfectly. Okay? He's the vile man of the whole earth, man. Right? And we can't wait for him to be knocked out of power and out of rulership, period. Okay? Um, but with that being said, you know, that's pretty much all I have, you know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai. You know, the title of today's lesson was, Esau is a vile man, man. Okay? Nobody wants to deal with him. Everybody hates him. He's, disgusting. He's low grade, uh, uh, a said of a person. Okay, you know. But yeah, like I said, that's pretty much all I have through the spirit and power, Yah by Shemal Shah. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, first and foremost, to the whole elect. But prior to getting out of here, we want to give our infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Shem, Harakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the whole elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, all right? Kwam Yasha Allah, Ababa Ball, Shalom.